Being a good tag team wrestler is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. If that's what you're good at, that's what you should do, even if single superstardom is tempting. Why give up what you're smashing with power when it could all go to hell? Exactly. And let's face it, sometimes it's obvious who is going to sink and who is going to swim outside of such a realm. You just get that feeling, and yet it happens anyway, and you can see the future slowly closing in. No one wants that. It's bad for the performer, and it's bad for the company. Try and build yourself back up from scratch when all is said and done. I'm Simon from What Culture, and this is 8 WWE Tag Team stars who couldn't cut it as singles. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to stay notified. Ding, ding, done. Number 8, Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn was a great tag team wrestler, and yet time and time again, WWE were desperate to have him as a major single star. They even went as far as to try him in a feud with The Rock. The Great One decimated him on promos, Gunn had no comeback, and that was that. He was dead. Figuratively. It's not like we didn't know that Billy wasn't a solid tag team guy either. His first act was with Brother Bart as a member of the Smoking Guns, and they were a solid mid-card act who captured the WWE tag team titles 3 times in their 3.5-year run. What happened after? He went out on his own, as Rockabilly. That sucked. Then we had the New Age Outlaws, who were so good together and so over, they eventually joined DX. And if that isn't a sign that you've struck gold, I don't know what is, especially as this was throughout the Attitude Era. Because he was tall and popular though, Gunn was taken away from the group and won the 1999 King of the Ring, before going into that aforementioned clash against Dwayne Johnson. He was soon back with the Road Dogg. I'll leave it at that. By the time Gunn returned from a shoulder injury in the fall of 2000, WWE tried one more time by calling him The One and put the Intercontinental title on him to boot. This was a bust as well, even if Billy claimed it was because of backstage politicking by Triple H. He also teamed with Big Show, Chuck Palumbo and then Hardcore Holly before leaving the WWE in 2004. And all of this has taught us he should have only ever been considered for a role where 2 people were needed. Number 7, Albert. Debuting in the WWE in 1999, the man known as Albert was teamed with Droz. Unfortunately, Droz was paralysed during a tragic in-ring accident later in the year, and the team was split up. Clearly thinking this was where he should be, he was placed with Test and given then newcomer Trish Stratus as a manager to form TNA. And yes, that is a terrible joke on behalf of Vince McMahon. They were, however, ever present in the tag title division and had some pretty decent feuds with the Dudleys and the Hardys. It was all over by early 2001 before Albert just tanked. He hooked up with X-Pac and Just Incredible to form the unbelievably lame X Factor, then he got partnered with Scotty 2 Hotty for a reason to this day no one knows. Still, even that was better than what followed. The decision was made to repackage Albert and he became the A-Train, and he was allowed to tangle with the likes of Edge and even The Undertaker. He failed to get over like management had hoped and was quietly released a short time later, and following some great years working in New Japan, he returned to WWE in 2012 as Tensai. The gimmick was horrendous, and so guess what happened next? They put him in a tag team, first with Santino Marella, and then Brodus Clay. Both were fine. Maybe. Number 6, Vaughn Dudley. Unlike many of the names on this list, Vaughn Dudley didn't really hop around teams. He spent most of his career tagging with Bubba as the Dudley Boys. They were awesome. But there was a period of time where Vaughn was forced to fly solo. The 2002 draft separated the former tag champs as Bubba went to Raw and Vaughn to SmackDown. Bubba continued to do his usual thing, often teaming with Spike Dudley, while Vaughn was given a totally new gimmick. He was now Reverend Vaughn, a crooked preacher who enlisted the help of Batista to win matches. That pairing didn't last long before WWE just threw him and Ron Simmons together. Because why not? They had to do something. It didn't take WWE long to realise that their experiment had failed, and they reunited the Dudley Boys at Survivor Series 2002, 6 months after the split. While Bubba did manage to have a successful singles run as Bully Ray in TNA, Vaughn is far better suited to the tag scene. Number 5, Charlie Haas. When Charlie Haas first walked into the WWE, he was, of course, a member of Team Angle. Paired up with Shelton Benjamin, the two wrestled in place of their leader Kurt Angle while the Olympic gold medalist recovered from injuries. Once Angle turned babyface, however, Shelton and Charlie went out on their own, calling themselves the world's greatest tag teams. They were really good too, and put on some great matches in 2003 and 2004. Then, we got that dreaded draft again, and off Shelton went to Raw. Charlie floundered for a while before he was put in a team with first Rico and then Hardcore Holly. Both were perfectly fine, but WWE released Haas in July 2005 due to budget cuts. They brought him back in April 2006, where he was put with Viscera of all people, before easing back into his old team with Benjamin. They broke up once more in November 2007 when Shelton was drafted to ECW, and Charlie was given a gimmick where he parodied other wrestlers. This was awful, and he got released again in 2010. That's all you need to know, really. He was gold within a tag team, but succumbed to bad booking. Where have we heard that before? Number 4, the Road Dogg. It's no real surprise Road Dogg and Billy Gunn worked so well together. Their careers had been so similar, they probably just clicked on that level instantly. Much like his partner, the Dogg was definitely built to be a tag team wrestler, as he was able to highlight his positives and hide his weaknesses when paired up with someone that complemented his style. A member of the legendary Armstrong wrestling family, Road Dogg began his WWE career as The Roadie, an assistant to Jeff Jarrett. The two rarely teamed, however, with The Roadie basically being just a pseudo-manager. When Jarrett left for WCW, there was a gap in the market, and this is where WWE did just decide to throw The Roadie together with Billy Gunn. The rest is history. They of course split eventually, and while Gunn was on his failed singles push, Dogg began teaming with X-Pac and then K-Quick, but neither could capture the same magic. Personal problems resulted in him getting released from his contract, and he later resurfaced in TNA, but even there, he never made it on his own. He needed a friend to be successful. Number 3, Jim Neidhart. Do you know that when Jim Neidhart first debuted for the WWE, he was a singles wrestler managed by Mr. Fuji? Well, you do now. He even had a feud with Bret Hart, who would later be his partner. What a world. The Hitman, upset that he wasn't going anywhere, suggested to Vince McMahon that he be teamed up with Neidhart, and thus the Hart Foundation were born. They were one hell of an act too, with Bret's technical prowess gelling nicely with Neidhart's explosive power. The two had a good 6-year run, capturing the tag team titles twice, but there was a problem. It was clear Bret would go on to be a singles star. What do we do with Jim? He tried the new foundation with Owen Hart for a while, but then Neidhart was fired for unprofessional conduct in February 1992. He came back a little over 4 years later and reformed his team with Owen before being let go once again due to unprofessionalism. His next return was nuts as he became the Masked Who, which is basically an excuse for Jerry Lawler and Vince McMahon to make bad jokes on commentary. Needless to say, it didn't lead to anything, and it was quite clear the Anvil was a tag team guy through and through. Number 2, Rick Steiner. It might seem strange to call a 3-time world television and United States champion as being a guy who wasn't a great singles star, but the fact is Rick Steiner's title reigns aren't really remembered, whereas his awesome partnership with brother Scott most definitely is. The real-life badass is an amateur standout to one of the most decorated in professional wrestling history, and were great workers to boot. The Steiners were both exciting and innovative during the late 80s to the early 90s, and built up a ton of amazing matches all over the place. The two split in 1998, with Scott going on to do well as Big Papa Pump, whereas Rick on the other hand just bounced around, and at one point he even had a run-in with the psycho doll Chucky. So who didn't want to see that? Truth is, people were only really interested when he was tagging with brother Scott. And that was that. Number 1, Marty Jannetty. Poor Marty Jannetty. His lack of solo success, coupled with the amazing Hall of Fame career as former partner Shawn Michaels, has led him to being the measuring stick when it comes to gauging the success of a tag team once they're done. How many times have you heard someone referred to as the Marty Jannetty of a team? It's a shame really, because the former rocker was a talented worker in his own right and didn't exactly have a dud of a career, just struggled without a partner. Jannetty's best period was undoubtedly teaming with HBK, although he only won WWE Tag Team Gold when he began tagging with the 1-2-3 Kid in 1993. His biggest shot at single stardom was his feud with Michaels, but that was brought to an abrupt end when he was fired following the 93 Royal Rumble, apparently because Vince McMahon and WWE management felt he was under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Kurt Hennig, or so they say, eventually convinced Vince to rehire Jannetty a few months later, telling the boss that the match was actually a stinker because of Michaels. Jannetty eventually captured the IC title but dropped it back to HBK a few weeks later, and it was back to the tag ranks for him. He was teamed with Leaf, Al Snow, Cassidy to become the New Rockers, which is always a bad idea. Something even Marty knew, as this time he asked for his own release. Basically, in WWE's eyes, he was a serviceable mid-card tag team wrestler and little else.
Well done, you made it all the way to the end of the video. Now, I'm not just here to increase our market share with women aged 18 to 35, but to tell you to watch one of these other videos we've made that are probably quite good. So, go on. That one or that one, they're both good. There you go.